What do President Obama, former Family Matters sitcom Jaleel White, who portrayed Steve Urkel, comedian Chris Tucker, and NBA star Kyrie Irving have in common? Well, they have all played basketball on Martha's Vineyard, and so have many more. In his book, Martha's Vineyard Basketball, How a Resort League Defied Notions of Race and Class, Boston-born author Bijan Bayne takes a unique look at how year-round residents and vacationers have played and loved basketball on Martha's Vineyard Island almost since the game was invented in Massachusetts by Dr. James Naismith. Those who played Summer League basketball recount the many friendships that were made on the courts, the teen romances, the popular music, and the racial dynamic of the times. The names will surprise you, and the stories will amuse as few, if any other, such books explore the rare scenario that island summer basketball was in the 1970s and 80s, where it was the black Americans who were usually the upscale, highly educated class interacting with a largely white working class. Now, welcome to Urban Update, author Bijan Bayne. Thanks for coming in. Great to have you here, and congratulations on what sounds like a really interesting book.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, what inspired you and motivated you to write a book about basketball in Martha's Vineyard?
Well, it's an unlikely topic to the rest of America, to those outside New England, even some within New England. So I thought it was unique. It's a unique era. It largely covers kids who played at basketball courts in Oak Bluffs in the 70s and 80s. And I thought it was interesting because I have firsthand experience of playing at those courts. But as I grew older, I found out that, you know, the presidents played down there, Alonzo Mournings played there, Kyrie Irving, as you mentioned. But the original story is about people who would have normally not met on the vineyard, summer vacationers, and working class vineyarders who probably wouldn't have interacted otherwise had it not been for basketball.
Let's talk a little bit about that, this rare racial dynamic that would take place with, I guess, you know, the kids playing, you know, black kids and white kids playing together on Martha's Vineyard, not only the racial aspects, but the socioeconomic aspects as well.
It was a little different. The Summer League in Oak Bluff started in 1970, and I probably became aware of it in 1971, if not the first summer. And what you would have is you would have year-round vineyard kids who were from the island, Portuguese American, French Canadian, Italian kids, playing in that Summer League when they were 8, 9, 10, 11 years old through high school, with vacationing kids who were from Milton, from Randolph, from Newton Center, Connecticut, New Jersey, Washington, D.C. These were black kids primarily. And for the most part, most of these kids' families wouldn't have known each other. Their fathers and mothers wouldn't have interacted, say, at Acretown Beach and places like that, because they wouldn't have been in social contact with one another had it not been for the summer leagues. And the summer leagues were grouped by age, from little kids through high school kids.
Well, you know, the thing is, normally, I guess, the normal scenario would be like, you know, a lot of white suburban kids on vacation playing with the, you know, the black inner city kids. But the script was flipped sort of as you describe in your book. And talk to me about the dynamic. What did that mean? What did that
Well, what it did was it exposed a lot of working class whites to suburban blacks they would have never met. And it also gave the suburban blacks an environment where, you know, they were the upscale. It was assumed that they were the well-to-do because this was their second house. So they're summering there. Whereas it was assumed that just because of the nature of what their mothers and fathers did for a living, it was sort of, as you say, a reverse basketball scenario that we think of in the rest of the country, where you think of an inner city black kid, and the few white kids that are playing at all are well-to-do, maybe a Christian Leitner, Bill Lambier's father was a dentist, Kiki Vanderweek's father played pro basketball. This was the opposite. This is college dean's kids playing with the son of a roofer, the son of a plumber, an auto mechanic.
Now, you, by the way, should point out, you know, you're from Roxbury originally?
Originally, yes.
You grew up as a kid, you spent some time in Boston, living in Boston and then in D.C., but you grew up going to the Vineyard like so many others around here.
Yes, and because of that, we met all kinds of people, and I think what that did, especially for the white kids that I interviewed for the book, they're not kids now, is it introduced them to black people, but it didn't introduce them to black people the way that, say, television introduces people to black people, TV shows like Good Times and Sanford and Son, they met upscale, well-educated blacks, or at least the children thereof. And by the time they went off the island, went to college, went in the service, they had probably a different view of blacks, a very first-hand view than people even on the mainland might have had, even in Boston proper and other places. Because remember, when we're playing on those basketball courts, it's the same time period that the forced busing crisis is going on in Boston.
That's right. About that, what about the school busing crisis? How does that sort of play into the story of what's going on? Because you mentioned that in your book, I believe.
Sure, I do. I allude to it. I interviewed a lot of people who played on the island or played in the Boston public schools, and they're telling me, like in the 73, 74, 75, I started out at this school, but they sent me over here because of busing. One person said something like he was going to Brighton, and they transferred out of Brighton to Hyde Park. Then he wanted to go back to Brighton because of the arts program. But the way that it comes up is there's a player that played Vineyard Summer League ball named Lee Pope, and he went to Brighton High, and he started in the BNBL, so he's very well known on the mainland, but he also played Summer League ball on the Vineyard. And we talk about his peers in the context of the BNBL, the Summer League, and some of his peers were caught up in that, starting out in one high school, going to another high school. And even this is the period when Metco first becomes really used across the state in terms of kids not going to their regional high schools.
Now, how do you think Vineyard basketball has changed since the 1970s and 80s? Because you still, as recently as last year, you see the kids out there all the time playing. The court, by the way, is under renovation right now, but hopefully it should be back, obviously. But how's it changed?
I think that in the 70s and in the 80s, the court served as a social center. It was sort of what we consider social media now. It took that place, it occupied that space in the 1970s. And the reason I say that is people that didn't play in the Summer League would come watch. People that had relatives would come participate by cheering on their favorite players or their brothers and sisters. And by them doing that, it was a gathering place. It was kind of like Facebook is now, because you went to the courts even if you weren't playing to figure out what was going on later that night. Where was there going to be a party? What beach were people going to the next day? Who had a summer job? Who was enrolled in what college?
What would you say is the big lesson of this book?
Well, one of the lessons, as you alluded to, is that class is actually probably more significant than complexion, because people can identify along the lines of, say, sport or music that may not have anything in common in terms of complexion or class.
What about any other maybe little-known aspects of Vineyard life do you touch on in the book?
Well, a lot of people don't know, but they will learn reading this book, that for most of the years that this book covers, Dukes County is either the poorest or second poorest county in Massachusetts. And that's because most of the work is seasonal. The summer jobs that are not available after Labor Day and Columbus Day, a lot of those people, winter sports and basketball in the Vineyard High School teams is something that brought those people together over the lean winter months when the economy is not as strong.
Wow. Okay, I guess we're going to have to leave it right there. I'd love to keep talking about it, though. I love the Vineyard, and I've seen a lot of those Vineyard basketball games. The author is Bijan Bayne. The book is Martha's Vineyard Basketball, How a Resort League Defied Notions of Race and Class. Thanks for coming in, and good luck with the book.
Thanks again for having me, Byron.
And good luck on the Vineyard.
I'll see you on the Vineyard soon.
Maybe a little basketball pretty soon when they get the court fixed up.
That's great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, well, that's it for this edition of Urban Update. From all of us here at Urban Update, I'm Byron Barnett. Have a great Sunday, everyone.